The Lions have the chance to be the best team in the NFC, the best team in the NFL. All right, welcome in. It's the Breer Report for November the 13th. Week 11 is here, and we are going to start with the first thing that you will see in Week 11, which is Thursday Night Football. The New York Jets visiting the New England Patriots. This is two teams that came into the season in very similar spots, but find themselves in different places now. And if you want to tie them together, you can go all the way back to the end of last year when the Jets' first interview for their vacant head coaching job was with Mike Vrabel. They really liked Mike Vrabel. They planned on bringing him back for a second interview. They took him out to dinner, the Capitol Grill in Parsippany, New Jersey, had a full day of interviews the next day. And a lot of the stuff that they learned about Vrabel flew in the face of stuff that they had heard after his firing in Tennessee. Mike Vrabel was able to establish some relationships in that building. That actually helped him when he was hiring some guys from the Jets staff, Todd Downing, Tony Dews, and he's maintained some of those relationships. So there's no bad blood there. But like I said, these teams entered the season in similar spots, both having hired their former players, Mike Vrabel in New England and then Aaron Glenn in New York, but are in very, very, very different spots now. The Jets come in with just 2 wins, albeit they are on a 2-game winning streak. The Patriots come in with just 2 losses in first place in the AFC East. And to me, this really illustrates the difference a quarterback makes. The Patriots' new regime with Mike Vrabel comes in. They've got Drake May to work with. Drake May makes this massive year 2 leap under Mike Vrabel and with Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator. And the Jets have more young talent than the Patriots do, but they don't have the quarterback position settled. So even though they've got a crew and they inherited a group of Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Olu Fashanu, they draft Armand Membu for the offensive line. On defense, you've got Quinnen Williams and Quincy Williams and Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald and Sauce Gardner. The fact that you don't have a young quarterback undermines all of that. And so they make the trades last week that reset the timeline. And so they're in a different spot now than the Patriots. They've got 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years to try and find that quarterback and work with some of those young players that are left after trading Sauce and Quinnen Williams. And you look on the other sideline and you see a Patriots team that now, after this year, should be in a position to go and compete for a championship and be aggressive in spending during Drake May's rookie contract, and maybe closer to competing for a championship now than we thought they were even a few weeks ago. They're playing really, really well. So it'll be exciting to see what the Jets can do to try to create some resistance against a New England team that's been playing very, very well and that beat a good Buccaneers team. They've really benefited from a soft schedule, but they beat a very good opponent, even if the Bucs are a little beat up in Tampa on Sunday. All right, now moving to Sunday, perhaps the biggest game as far as stakes go on Sunday, the Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills. Both of those teams coming off losses, and there are a bunch of big games on Sunday, but that's the reason why I like this one the most is because the momentum's not going in the right direction for either of these teams right now. Both teams came into Week 10 with some momentum. Both teams lost in ugly fashion. The Buccaneers lose at home to the Patriots. The Bills get throttled somehow by the Miami Dolphins. So both teams will be looking to turn things around. I think this is a bigger game for the Bills. Now, both these teams are beat up, right? So the Bills are without Ed Oliver. They've got other injuries all over the place. The Bucs have been playing without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Cody Mock and Hassan Reddick and Bucky Irving. So both these teams are beat up. So the question then becomes, who is this a bigger game for? And that's a question my producer, Kent Brown, asked. I believe this is a bigger game for the Buffalo Bills. The reason why, the Buccaneers are insulated to some degree by the division that they're in. Yes, the Carolina Panthers are much improved, but I don't know whether or not they'll be able to sustain some of the momentum they had. They've been very up and down over the course of the year, but I don't know that they'll be able to sustain some of the momentum that they were able to build over the last few weeks. The Falcons, as tough as they've been on a week-to-week basis, are 3-6 now. I just think the Buccaneers, because of the division they're in, have some margin for error, whereas the emergence of the Patriots in the AFC East has created more urgency for the Buffalo Bills. They'll play the Patriots in a few weeks. They have to hold serve until then. And so, again, I think this is a little bit of a bigger game for the Bills than it is for the Buccaneers. And finally, the big NFC showdowns this week, they could help determine seeding. The Lions play the Eagles. And then we have the Rams and the Seahawks. I'll start with the Lions and the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles have some issues offensively. They've had to win different ways this year. I was surprised to see that really it's been the defense that's had to carry the team of late. And the reason why is they turned over so much of their defensive infrastructure from last year. They lost Josh Sweat. They lost Milton Williams. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They lost Darius Slay. This is not the same Eagles defense that you saw last year, yet the defense is being relied on now to win games. And I think the addition of guys like Jihad Campbell and Jalen Phillips, of course, over the last couple of weeks, obviously they drafted Campbell back in April. The additions of those guys, those have been difference makers, and they'll have to continue to be difference makers as the Eagles try to work things out offensively. And then the Lions really seemed to break through last week with Dan Campbell taking over as the team's play caller. I still think the Lions have the highest ceiling of any team in the NFC. The coaching changes have created some ups and downs over the course of the year, but I still think when you look at their roster, where they're going, I think the Lions have a chance to be the best team in the NFC, the best team in the NFL by the end of the year. Again, a lot of that's going to ride on their ability to work some of those issues out from a coaching standpoint. And Kelvin Shepard's done a really nice job on the defensive side of the ball. How does the Dan Campbell, John Morton, Jared Goff dynamic look on offense? I think that'll determine how far they go. And then the other NFC game of consequence, and just as far as, what this is going to mean for January seeding, I think this might be the biggest game of the weekend. We got the Seattle Seahawks going into Los Angeles to play the Rams. I think the Rams are playing as well as anybody in all of the NFL. Matthew Stafford may be the MVP of the league. He is tracking for 47 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions, 4,600 yards. And they're a team that does not need to win by throwing the ball. They become way more physical over the last couple of years. Sean McVay's really leaned into that, and we see it in the running game of Kyron Williams and Blake Corum and what they're able to bring up front on both sides of the ball. And they'll be going up against a Seattle team that I think might be one of the most complete athletic rosters in the league. If you look at what they bring to the table, there really isn't a massive hole. I mean, maybe at guard, but the offensive line is solid, very good bookend tackles, one of the best receivers in football, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now you got Rashid Shaheed adding to a group that's got Cooper Kupp at that position. At running back, you've got Walker and Charbonnet, who you've had for a while. The defensive front looks like DeMarcus Lawrence was a really nice add to a group that's already pretty good with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy. And then in the defensive backfield, guys like Julian Love, obviously Devin Witherspoon's a big star. They've got players everywhere. And to me, it looks like the sort of team that's going to continue to get better as the year goes on. Amazing, amazing stat. They have scored 30 points in the first half of 3 games this year, the first team to do that since 1980. And we still have for them, is it 7? 7 games? 8 or 7? Is it 7 or 8 games left in the season? So the Seahawks, it still feels like they have room to grow, and they've been playing at an incredibly high level. I cannot wait for that one this weekend. Appreciate you guys coming out. As always, you can leave comments down below on the YouTube page. If you ask a few questions, maybe I'll throw a few answers on there later today. You can also hit me on my social media at Albert Breer on Twitter, at Albert R. Breer on Facebook, at Albert_Breer on Instagram. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll see you guys next week.